All right, let's welcome in our guest to talk about this. With us today, we have criminal defense attorney Adam Conta and crime analyst Lisa Lockwood. Thank you so much for joining us again. So it sounds like Chad Oulson was aware that he was shot, and apparently he shouted out that he was shot before he dropped to the ground. He even made a motion towards walking out towards the aisle. Lisa, given that and this statement from the medical examiner, how impactful do you think this scene is going to be played out to jurors?
Well, certainly Chad was fearful. And we know that because the medical examiner also testified to the fact that his wife put her hand out to shield him from the bullet. He also put his hands in mid-level. So they saw the gun actually being pulled and immediately went into a self-defense mode. So I think the jury hearing that and putting the other parts of the puzzle together of what happened and what would make this individual feel that he needed to use deadly force in that moment.
Well, that's really interesting, Adam, and it's exactly what I was wanting to ask Lisa next. Reeves is 79 right now. This incident took place about 8 years ago, so he was 71, 72 at the time. Will his age factor into this at all? Will the jurors maybe see his actions as justifiable? An elderly gentleman getting in an argument with a young guy?
I would say yes, were it not for the evidence that came forward when they actually showed a video clip of him. There were no injuries. He was walking fine. He hastily went to the exit to go tell management he wasn't happy with what was going on inside with the guy with the cell phone, hastily went back to his seat. He was mobile. He didn't have a cane. He's a retired police officer. There are so many factors in this. So we never know what's on the jury's mind. You know, if they have a feeling toward police being overly aggressive, or if the feeling in Florida regarding stand your ground will stand up to this. But I'm coming from a police perspective, and that is, when is a cell phone a deadly weapon? And I've never seen it in my lifetime on this planet where a cell phone's a deadly weapon unless it was launched out of a cannon at a high speed. The proximity of where he was when he threw the cell phone is not enough to cause death in any way, shape, or form.
Not to mention popcorn is also not a deadly weapon from everything that I've heard or experienced. All right, I want to bring in our guests, Lisa Lockwood and Adam Conta, to discuss that police interview that we just listened to. It was pretty lengthy. Things that stood out to me, Curtis Reeves established pretty early on that he was afraid of getting hurt or beat, he said. Lisa, he also talked about how he trained police officers, and he talked about his own experience as a police officer. What stood out to you, and what did you make of that particular point about him being a police officer and still committing this act?
Right. A few things that stood out. He was on SWAT for 14 years. He made the assertion that he's never had anybody in his face. Unless he was a police officer in Mayberry, trust me, if you're on a SWAT team and on the job for 28 years, you're going to experience confrontations with people, from bar fights to domestics to burglaries to in progress crimes. So that did not come off as congruent to the life and career of a police officer. And what I thought was important when he said, yeah, I believed I was going to have serious injury or harm. That does not constitute death. Now, he knows the use of force continuum is you are in the belief that you will die or receive great bodily injury that may result in death. Somebody hitting you with a cell phone or his fist probably is not going to end in you dying, especially in a theater filled with people with the opportunity for other people to intervene and potentially protect him.
And Lisa, what did you make of that? And how does this make the defendant look? The fact that there was no injury, nothing even noted, and he was saying that he felt in fear for his life, or at least that he thought he was going to get beat, in his words.
Yes. Him actually physically showing, I think those demonstrations are really important. And he kind of just, it was a very soft and gentle pushing of the eye. I was hitting the eye. And he repeated it over and over. It wasn't, a big thing like, look at this. I need to see a doctor. I need to be checked out, et cetera. And he wasn't. My understanding, I think initially there was an ambulance there, but there was nothing that he needed to be treated for.
almost as if on cue, we just saw Curtis Reeves rubbing his eye right there in the shot as he sat in the courtroom, as if he knew that we were talking about that exactly. Certainly sounds like his rubbing of the eye was not a serious injury. We're going to head right back into the courtroom. It looks like they're continuing with questioning.